Well, the FAA saw my video and their reaction could impact a lot of pilots in the future. In this video, I'll tell you about their reaction to my last YouTube video on the outrageous $3,000 Las Vegas landing fees, and I'll explain why this is an important issue for all general aviation pilots. I'm also going to expose some specific data I discovered about recent operations at these airports. To catch you up real quick, I recently heard that Las Vegas is charging outrageous $3,000 landing fees for every arrival during the Formula One race, no matter what kind of plane you're flying, and even if you're just dropping someone off. I covered this in pretty good detail in my last video, and thanks to you guys sharing it, the video caught the attention of the FAA and made its way pretty far up the chain there. My sources have informed me that they've had some higher level representation present on a call to discuss the fees with AOPA and the Clark County Department of Aviation, who runs the airports. We'll get into that call in a minute along with some other surprising data, but I want to explain why I think the situation matters to all of us pilots and address some of your comments I received on the last video. A few of you in the comments have said, look, if you don't like it, then just don't go that weekend. Well, in the US, we have such a unique freedom to fly. This is something I didn't even realize before getting pretty far into my private pilot training. We're the best country in the world for general aviation, and we enjoy the most amount of freedoms while simultaneously having the least amount of government fees and regulations. You can own an airplane for the price of a luxury car. I sold my previous Cherokee 180 to a group of 5 friends who enjoy flying for a very reasonable monthly cost. Aviation in this country really can be accessible to just about anyone who has a passion to make it happen. It's not just for the ultra wealthy. Aside from the fun adventures, challenges in aviation lead to so much personal growth and community. I want as many people to be able to experience this as possible, so that's what's at stake. And these enormous landing fees are a real threat to this freedom. Without asking for accountability, there's nothing to stop more and more days from becoming special events, and nothing to stop other FBOs or airport management from charging larger and larger fees across all the airports in the country. Vegas themselves already charged $500 landing fees at all 3 airports for the weekend of the opening of the Sphere, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Others of you commented that, well, that's just supply and demand. I think it's safe to say that we all want airports to be able to stay in business and for everyone involved in operations to make a good living doing so. Most of us are willing to pay reasonable amounts for service and convenience, for sure. But we can't forget that airports are public utilities, originally paid for by taxpayer dollars, and while they're often self-sustaining, they do accept federal grant money for improvements. We shouldn't apply supply and demand to public utilities. The goal of the airports shouldn't be to maximize profit to appease shareholders like a private company, but should be able to serve the public in a self-sustaining way. Imagine if national parks started charging $1,000 entrance fees at peak times because the demand was high, or if your public roads suddenly cost hundreds of dollars when a popular sporting event was happening. We should keep airports public and accessible like our roads and the rest of our transportation infrastructure. And that's not just my opinion. FAA rules clearly state that public use airports that receive federal funding are not permitted to charge unfair and unreasonable fees. The Clark County Department of Aviation has received federal funding, including over $30 million for improvements. Okay, on to the FAA and the latest phone call before we uncover some interesting data. My sources inform me that my last video about the Vegas landing fees caught the attention of the FAA and worked its way up the chain, prompting some more senior position focus on the situation. AOPA, the FAA, and the Clark County Department of Aviation had a phone call to discuss it. On the call, Clark County officials said the purpose of the fee is to help recover and defray the airport's costs to host the event, but they said they didn't know their exact costs and said the event fee is based on examples from the Super Bowl in Phoenix. The airports will of course have to hire on additional staff, ground support equipment, and pay for some other logistics. It makes perfect sense that they have to scale up the operation to handle a higher volume of airplanes. We do know already that Henderson has hired an outside company to help manage the ramp traffic and queue up airplanes on a separate frequency and hand them off to ground control. But they weren't able to provide any specifics on the costs on that phone call, and up to the publication date of this video, haven't answered a request I sent for specific details or comment. Okay, editor Eric here with a late breaking update. I just found out that Clark County has reduced the fees for ADG-1 type planes, those with wingspans less than 49 feet and tail heights less than 20 feet. I'm assuming this was in response to pressure from the FAA, AOPA, and the GA pilot community. The new fee is $750. While this is a step in the right direction, it's still an outrageous and, in my opinion, unnecessary fee. Okay, back to what I was saying before to explain that and support it with some surprising data I discovered. It's hard to believe that these additional expenses would amount to $3,000 per aircraft when in past years the department has generally run a surplus for the entire year with just the normal reasonable parking fees. It sure seems like a $3,000 arrival fee for a Cessna 172 is excessive, so it at least warrants asking for some transparency in the interest of trying to keep general aviation accessible. I'm sure it's a very difficult job to manage the airports for a big event like this. It sounds incredibly stressful, but if we just roll over and accept these huge fees without question, this type of practice is going to continue to spread. And now we have the attention of the FAA on this specific situation, so hopefully we'll get some accountability. And in the spirit of accountability, I dove into some data about these Vegas airports. As you may know, Vegas already charged $500 at all 3 of these airports for the weekend of the Sphere opening, presumably to cover operations due to increased traffic. That's their stated reason for the huge fees. So I looked into the data using FAA's OpsNet system, which is the official source of FAA traffic data. I was able to search the data for airport operations at Henderson and North Las Vegas for the past several years. I looked at itinerant aircraft operations, which are aircraft arriving or departing from or to areas outside of the local traffic patterns of these airports, basically aircraft flying into these airports from somewhere else or departing out of the area. And I compared the weekend of the Sphere opening, when they were charging $500, to the same calendar weekend the previous year, and discovered there were actually about 13% fewer itinerant aircraft operations for the Sphere opening at both Henderson and North Las Vegas than the previous year's weekend. So was 13% less than the previous year still a lot of traffic coming in and out of these airports? You might be surprised to find out that the days of the Sphere opening weekend don't even rank in the top 25 busiest for Henderson or North Las Vegas for itinerant aircraft, or even for total aircraft operations that include local aircraft. So what was that $500 landing fee all about? It doesn't seem like it was warranted to cover additional resources to handle a high volume of aircraft, because according to the FAA data, it just didn't exist. Again, I reached out to Clark County Department of Aviation asking for specific numbers, but I haven't heard back. If you want to get in the loop on this and all other things Flying Monkey, come on over and join our Patreon and Discord for free. If you want to support this effort for just 1/1000th of a cost of a single landing at Las Vegas, you'll get access to loads of exclusive content like our multi-view IFR flight series and windy.com for pilots tutorials. It's super easy to join, so come on over. And if you're based in Las Vegas and have any additional information or footage of the airports during the Formula One week, please message me on YouTube or Instagram. Hopefully we can get some transparency on these huge fees and protect general aviation. Thanks for watching.